Well, with me, I've got Bill McKibben, who has returned to New Zealand after an absence of a couple of years. But welcome back, Bill.
Very good to be back, Gareth.
So you're up in Auckland.
En route to Dunedin today.
Excellent. And I gather you had a good turnout for your talk last night.
Yes, every seat was filled. It was good fun, and the same across Australia. So the message is getting across this part of the world.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, so you're doing the Do the Math tour, or Do the Maths, I think, as you've altered it slightly for for us Antipodeans. Tell me, what is that math?
Well, the math's pretty easy, really, Gareth. I people have been little reports and things about it over the years, but I kind of laid it out for the first time in a big piece in Rolling Stone last summer that went kind of oddly viral, turned into one of the most shared pieces ever. And here's the deal. As you know, everybody knows, the one thing the world's governments have agreed on about what we should do about climate is that we should keep the temperature from increasing more than 2 degrees.
Yeah.
Not a very wise target. 1 degree has melted the Arctic, whatever. Scientists say keep it, we're already too high. But the only line we've got to sort of hold the world governments to is 2 degrees. Scientists, so that's what the governments have said, 2 degrees. Scientists have said, here's how much carbon you could burn and have some hope of staying below 2 degrees, roughly 500 and some gigatons, 500 and some billion tons.
Yeah.
Okay. This doesn't give you a perfect guarantee of staying below 2 degrees, but it's about the right ballpark. Okay. The third number doesn't come from governments or from scientists. It comes from financial guys. And they figured it out, a team called Carbon Tracker, by adding up all the reserves of coal and oil and gas that the fossil fuel industry has filed, in stock exchange filings, annual reports, all those kind of official things. And it turns out that the fossil fuel companies and the countries that operate like fossil fuel companies, think Venezuela, already have in their reserves on the books about 2,800 gigatons of carbon, or 5 times more than the most conservative governments say we could safely burn. And so you quickly see the problem here. If you're going to make the 2-degree target, you have to leave about 80% of their reserves in the ground. But if you do that, it will come at great cost to the richest industry on earth, who do everything they can to make sure it doesn't happen.
And there are certainly plenty of signs that the industry has been doing that. They've been paying for campaigns to, for action against emissions reductions, haven't they? All around the world.
Absolutely. No, in the U.S., this is who funds the Tea Party. In Australia, it's who funds the Abbott, that's where the Abbott government will come from if it gets formed,
Yep.
on and on and on.
Yeah.
So we need to figure out how to weaken them politically and financially. And this is a way. As people look at these numbers, they start to understand that these are no longer to be considered normal industries, that they're in some sense a kind of rogue industry, outlaw against the laws of physics, as it were. And that begins to change their political power some. We need to make them into the tobacco companies. The financial guys look at it and understand that what's described here is a classic bubble, i.e., it's not in this case that they've built more houses than people want to live in. It's that they've got more carbon than the world has said it's going to use. HSBC and Sydney put out reports showing that if the world took that 2-degree target seriously, you'd have to cut the share values of the fossil fuel companies in half.
Wow.
Okay? So if you invest in those companies, it's a bet that the world never will do anything about climate change. Now, that's both an unwise bet for financial reasons and an immoral bet for practical ones. If it's wrong to wreck the climate, it's wrong to profit from that wreckage. And so with both those ideas in mind, one of the things we've done with this math is launch this divestment campaign.
Yeah.
First in the US, now in the Antipodes, soon all over the world. And it's beginning to kick in. On 380 college campuses in the US, kids are fighting to get their boards of trustees to divest. 10 big cities have already done so: Seattle, San Francisco. It's moving into religious communities. When I was in Australia last week, the Uniting Church of Australia, the biggest Protestant denomination there, announced that it was divesting its coal stocks, which is a big deal in a coal mining country. So this is beginning, early days, but beginning to take hold in a good way. And here in New Zealand, at fossilfree.org/NZ, people are going to work on this problem too. Trying to force superannuation funds, pension funds to divest, working in colleges and universities to get them to divest their holdings, so on and so forth. It's a good fight. It's not the only fight. Once you know those numbers, you know how crazy it is for us to be going to look for more coal and gas and oil when we already have more than we can burn. So it helps make people understand how crazy it is for New Zealand to be considering new offshore exploration for oil. We need no more oil. We've got more than we can burn. That's the hole that we're in. And when you're in a hole, the first rule is stop digging. Literally, in this case.
Yes, absolutely. Well, unfortunately, as far as New Zealand is concerned, we're still intent on building new open-cast coal mines and, as you said, drilling around the country. But there's been, I think, our own Solid Energy fossil fuel extraction business has done a fair bit by costing the government a lot of money. So that's been a step in the right direction.
Yes, and these guys are in more financial trouble than they sometimes admit. You can sort of see it in the desperation to get this stuff out of the ground quickly.
Yeah.
They understand that in a few more years, I mean, with each passing day, with each lesson that Mother Nature teaches us about the eroding climate, it becomes harder to imagine a future where we keep doing this. If they can't get this stuff out of the ground in the next few years, it'll stay there forever. That's why they're desperate to do it now.
Yeah. Now, financial markets are often said to run on sentiment. So I would guess that your strategy is to change the perception of the market.
Yeah, and in this case, we're not actually trying to bankrupt Exxon. I don't think we can do that in the short run. But I do think we can change the perception of them, and that's very important at this point.
Yeah, the tobacco companies are still operating, aren't they? So
they are. And the tobacco companies offer a cautionary tale, The reason they're still operating and profitable is because they've all moved their operations to China, and they're busy, killing people there.
Yeah.
Then the fossil fuel industry is obviously trying to do the same thing in a lot of ways. So that's why we have a global movement. That's why 350.org works everywhere, China included.
Yeah. So how is 350.org getting on in China?
China is an interesting place to work, Gareth. On the one hand, they've emulated some of the worst in Western technology and ideas. They borrowed our coal-fired power plants and our coal, and now they're making like we did 100 years ago,
Yeah.
But they're also pioneering renewable energy at a rapid pace. 250 million Chinese get their hot water from solar panels on their roofs.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. Huge wind installations. They've been driving down the price, as you know, of photovoltaic cells at an incredibly rapid rate to the point where they're almost a commodity item now.
Yeah.
So China's both hurting and helping, and it's a fascinating place because the Chinese understand that they're under the gun. The Himalayas are melting. They have enormous drought problems already in the north. The
Yeah.
polar delta, where their manufacturing base is only a few meters above sea level. So it's tough.
Absolutely. So we hit at Mauna Loa 400 parts per million very recently.
Yes.
So, I mean, we want to be at 350, preferably below that, I guess. So
Yes.
we need to go beyond just the sticking to that 500 gigaton budget that you're talking about
That's
to
right.
go and
That's
take
right.
it out the air.
For now, all we're doing, frankly, is just trying to turn the trajectory around. The
Yeah.
International Energy Agency announced yesterday that yet again we've emitted more carbon than the year before. We're still going up.
Yeah.
And we've got to, before we can get back down to 350, we've got to stop short of 450.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, you're right. We're not solving the problem. We're trying to prevent complete calamity at this point.
Well, Bill, I'm more power to your elbow, I have to say, because it is one of the most depressing things when you look at the evidence of what's happening now. You know, the floods in Germany and the state of the Arctic sea ice. It boggles my mind, to coin a phrase, that the world's leaders aren't sort of sitting up and saying, "Hey, we've got to do something about this."
The world's leaders will sit up and do something when we have a movement large enough to make them do it. And that's what we're trying to build. And we're grateful to everybody who's helping out, you included.
Okay, Bill. Well, look, thank you very much for your time this morning. I know you're on a tight schedule. Have a great time in Dunedin. Have some haggis and scotch, because it's a very Scottish place, Dunedin.
I like Dunedin a lot. I can't wait to get down there. You take care.
Thank you, Bill. Bye-bye.